Sal St. George's virtual road trip to the Clark Gable Museum in Cadiz, Ohio. My name is Darren St. George, and we are thrilled that you're here with us today. If this is your first time, welcome to the party. If you've been with us before, it's always a pleasure to have you back. This is how we start our Monday mornings, celebrating entertainment's leaders, legends, and icons, and today is no exception at all. Good morning to everyone. My goodness, I am so thrilled to see so many familiar names and faces on our window this morning. As you can tell, it's a very friendly group. We're happy to see each other, and this is so exciting. Oh, I see people are here from London. Hello, welcome. Good morning, everybody. All right, as always, we have John Higgins behind the scenes, making sure everything runs smoothly. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat window. We're keeping an eye on it, both on Zoom and Facebook. We'll share any questions you may have with Sal. We also are joined by three very special people. We have Nan, the executive director from the Clark Gable Museum. We also have Michael, and his daughter Angie is going to be manning the camera for us as we take today's tour. Please, if you could, make sure that you have your camera and your microphone on mute throughout today's lecture. We want to make sure that we can best experience the museum and not get distracted. So make sure you keep your camera, as we see, keep your camera and your microphone on mute. Without further ado, let's get to the man of the hour. Dad, Sal, are you there? Oh my goodness, we have Brooklyn and France, London. I look at this. Everybody's
Romania. I saw Romania go by.
Yes. Toronto, my goodness.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the program today. Thank you, Darren. Great intro, as always. You know what amazes me? People say, oh, these are all forgotten stars. And we've been going to all these different celebrity museums. I am overwhelmed that people still remember and cherish the memory of Clark Gable.
Yep.
And I think we should get everybody right in right away.
Yeah, let's do it.
Tour. Let's get everybody in there. So Mike and Angie, you could turn on all your equipment.
Oh, and I see we already have questions at hand. Verena, if you have a question, just type it into the chat window. This way we can share it that way. There you go. Thank you, Verena.
Good morning, everybody. I can see everybody there at the museum now.
Good morning.
How are you?
Hello from the birthplace of Clark Gable, the king of Hollywood.
Hi, Nan. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Why don't you just tell us, how did this museum even begin?
Oh, that's a long story. We had several members of Cadiz that got together and decided that they needed to form a Clark Gable club, and they wanted to honor him on his birthday. So we were having parties. And then I think it was Mike that got the idea that we needed to reconstruct his birth home.
Well, we started out, Sal, the house where he was born was torn down in the 60s. It was a rental property down below and up above. And so there was nothing to mark his birthplace. So people would come to Cadiz and say, where's his house? And we'd say, well, it was out on Charleston Street someplace. And it was very embarrassing. And of course, we were experiencing an economic downturn from the coal industry at the time. So we were looking for things to try to increase tourism. So we said, well, we've got to at least put up a monument that marks the spot. But we had to raise $9,000 to put it up. So we did that. And then we always intended to reconstruct the home. So when the people who owned the property passed away, they left us the property. And then a few years later, a local lady who was quite wealthy left us enough money to reconstruct it. And it's done absolutely originally.
How many years ago was this?
It was built in 98 is when we rebuilt the house. The monument went up in 86. And we've been, the story actually is a little funnier. In 1984, a telephone call was made to the Cadiz post office from a disc jockey near Chicago. And he said to the postman, do you know whose birthday it is today? Postman said, no. So what's Clark Gable's birthday? This is his hometown. Did you not? It's never been forgotten since then. We have celebrated his birthday every February 1st since then. And today is February 1st, is his 120th birthday.
And we're glad to be here for the party.
Thank you. We have the cake and everything.
So,
I got 2 of them.
all right, let's see what you have. Let's, our people are very inquisitive. They want to know everything. And we're trying to cram as much as we can in an hour. So, Nan, take us away and let's see what you want to show us.
Well, we've got so many items here in the gift shop to sell, and that's how we keep our museum going, is through sellable items. And one thing that is a big hit here is Clark Gable's driver's license that we had recopied. And so that in itself, and then the mugs are really, really a hot item. One of the other items is that.
Show them to us, Angie.
Yes.
Where's the mugs?
Right down here.
There we go.
Oh, geez.
And while you're pulling that up, let me just assure everybody in the chat room, I know we're going to get questions. You can get these things online. Don't worry. We're at the end. I'll show you and we'll share links to the museum. This way you can purchase your own mugs and so forth. Don't worry.
Okay.
There we go.
You have the driver's license?
Yeah, the driver's license. Can you hand me one, Melinda? Yeah.
I like the bumper sticker that you have behind you.
Yes, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. It is a hot item also.
We have T-shirts also.
Yes, and we have shot glasses that has the Clark Gable birthplace, Cadiz, Ohio. The king, which everybody knows Clark Gable was the king.
Now, Nan, out of all the things you have in that beautiful museum, is there something that you really take pride in, something that is very special to you?
You know, that's a really difficult question because there's so many.
It probably would be upstairs.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that'd be great to have that driver's license. If you're ever pulled over, you can just whip that out.
Yeah. Yeah. Try it. But then we also have magnets. That is a hot item here, and it has a picture of Clark Gable.
Very nice.
And they really like that. And then, of course, we have some plates.
We've just recently, Sal, we just recently put this on our gift shop site on www.clarkgablefoundation.com, or is it Gable? ClarkGableFoundation.com, right? And so you can see most of these items on that site.
And also, look at this unique lunchbox. Gone with the wind.
Okay, let's move into this museum proper now and see some of your.
I don't know what to do. How do I get to listen?
I didn't quite understand that. You wanted to move
let's go right into the museum part now.
We're going upstairs.
We have to go upstairs, so give us a few minutes to walk there.
Yeah, you want to say that?
Yeah. He was born. Whoops. I don't know why.
Oh, they love the lunchbox.
Yeah. Oh, good. He was born on the second floor of this building. So downstairs is the gift shop. Upstairs is where he actually was born, and that's where we're going. But we have to walk outside and up some steps to get to it.
Okay, so the entire first floor is a gift shop?
Yes, but this is not a large house, Sal. Nan has her office in the back. There's 2 rooms. We'll show you another one of the rooms here. This is part of the gift shop here.
Wow.
Wow, that's incredible.
This is probably the most extensive gift shop that we've had in any of the museums we've been to.
It's true.
Really?
Oh, definitely. Yep. And I mean, a lot of diversity of items that you have for sale. It's really surprising. But go ahead, go outside. And while you head outside, I have some poll questions for our audience. So,
okay.
So here's our first one. I'd like to know, what is your favorite Clark Gable movie? Let's start off easy. Mutiny on the Bound, San Francisco, The Misfits, Red Dust, or It Happened One Night. Go ahead, cast your vote. Dad, do you have any predictions?
Well, I know which one is my favorite, and I intentionally left out Gone with the Wind.
Well, I think that, yeah, it's probably his most famous film. So let's see here. All right, we're getting there. And it looks like I think we have a winner running away here. All right. So let's see. We have votes are still coming in, but I think it's pretty clear that It Happened One Night is going to be our first place winner.
Well, it's the movie he won an Academy Award for. I'm sure we'll talk about it when we get back with Mike and Angie and Nan. My personal favorite on
Mutiny on the Bound?
No.
No?
No.
Shoot.
The Misfits turned out to be not only his final movie, but also Marilyn Monroe's final movie. They both passed away shortly after the making of The Misfits. So it was... She started another movie, but she passed away before she could finish it.
Okay.
So that's the last movie for those two. Red Dust is a great film because of Jean Harlow in it, but my preference is San Francisco.
Oh.
It's a great movie. Jeanette MacDonald, Spencer Tracy plays a priest on it, and Clark is a saloon owner. And the finale of the movie, made in 1936, I believe, is a reenactment of the San Francisco earthquake. And if you've not seen San Francisco, for 1936, that earthquake is really well produced. And it's one of the first films that I can remember. People talk about him crying in Gone with the Wind, but in San Francisco, when he thinks he lost Jeanette MacDonald, what an emotional scene. Great acting with him and Spencer Tracy as well. Okay, I'm done talking. It looks like they're upstairs. Take it away, Mike. Take it away, Nan.
Nan, this is Nan's shtick. She conducts these tours for people who come from all over the country to find out about Clark Gable. And so I'm going to turn it to Nan because she's the expert.
Okay.
Well, I don't know about the expert, but anyhow, I sure do enjoy giving the tours. And we have a lot here to offer the people that can relive his home. And because this is where they lived in a 5-room apartment, and it was very small. And what we're standing in now would have been their kitchen. But we have a scrapbook showing his 5 wives. And that is very interesting because a lot of people had forgotten that he had 5 wives. And
Angie,
so
can you get a close-up of those pages of the 5 wives? Can you get a close-up of the picture of their wife, of his wives?
Tilt the book.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. Do you want to tell us who the 5 wives were?
Nan?
Josephine Dillon was his first wife, and the second one was Rita Lanham, and his real love, of course, was Carol Lombard. That was his third. His fourth was Lady Ashley, and that was not a very good marriage at all. They were divorced, and he married the Kay Spreckles, who was the mother to the son that Clark Gable never saw because he passed away 4 months before John was born.
And that
Is his son still alive?
indeed he is, and he's been here. He's visited us 2 or 3 times. We have some video of him, and frankly, he doesn't look as much like his father as his daughter to Loretta Young, Judy Lewis, who looked very much like Clark Gable. We have some photos of her as well. She also has been here.
All right. So being you opened up that story, why don't you tell everybody about Loretta Young?
Well, Clark Gable was and Loretta Young were filming Call of the Wild. And apparently they had a little fling while they were filming the movie. And Loretta was a very, very devout Catholic. And it just wouldn't do for her to be expecting a child and not being married. So she traveled to Europe. And her claim was when she came back with a baby. And she claimed that she adopted a child in Europe. And that was Judy Lewis. So Judy grew up, and everybody in Hollywood knew that she was Clark Gable's daughter, but she didn't, until she finally confronted her mother many years later and said, "Am I Clark Gable's daughter?" She said her mother had a very difficult time revealing that to her, but she finally did. And Judy wrote a book about it. Judy in herself was she was on soap operas out of New York. So she had a career of her own, but she was a really nice lady. We enjoyed chatting with her. And John, her half brother, never really acknowledged her. So, it was kind of a strained relationship.
Very difficult. Okay. All right. Let's see some more of the house.
Do you want me to tell him about the items that we had for sale? That I'm the one that started the first gift
You
shop?
say whatever you want to say, Nan. It's your show.
I think they want to see the rooms. Let's go and show this big
okay.
room over here.
Okay.
Well, you haven't shown the things here first. Start out with what we've got here. These are items that were actually his.
Yeah. Not the bowl, but the picture was actually his from his home in Hopedale, Ohio.
Where he grew up.
Yeah.
Get real close to it, Ange. Let's see what it looks like.
Camera doesn't want to cooperate.
It's just that it's a Zoom. It's not really.
There we go. So that was his picture?
A water pitcher, yes. Mm-hmm. Now the bowl I found at an antique shop, and I purchased it so that it have something to set in, because that's the way they washed their hands at that time period.
Right. There was no indoor plumbing.
Right, and if Angie will put it down, we do have the porta pot,
The chamber pot.
chamber pot.
Oh,
Yeah,
boy.
that's what.
Wait a minute. Was that Clark Gable?
What the?
That
Chamber.
wasn't his.
Okay.
That's something that would have been similar to what he had in the house,
Okay.
because there was no plumbing in this apartment.
Right. And I'm assuming no heat.
No, there were, and she'll explain that there was a fireplace in every room.
Yes, there's 5 fireplaces. Now you're going in there.
Wait, tell them about that fireplace first.
Oh, okay. And this is the type of fireplace that they would have had in almost every room. That's how they kept warm. And this film is the King and 4 Queens is how the films used to be back then. And this little cylinder here, that's a puzzle of Clark Gable and his movie. And we also have an album, how they used to be back when we didn't have the sophisticated.
Maybe it'd be better have a bigger picture of people.
You got it?
Yep. Very good.
Yeah.
Now, how long did he live in this house, Nan?
Actually, he only lived here
9 months.
about 9 months. And then they moved out because his mother
Adeline Hirschman.
was very ill. And the steps that she had to maneuver to get up to the apartment was too steep and difficult to carry water and go to the outhouse then. So they moved out, and that's when they went to Hopedale.
Well, actually,
Went back to
what happened was Adeline Hirschman Gable had seizures, and she died when Clark was 9 months old. So Bill was then a widower, and he sent Clark back to Meadville, Pennsylvania, where Adeline's mother and father lived. So Clark was with the Hirschmans for a couple of years.
How old
Until-
was he at that point?
What's that?
How old was he?
2. Well, when he was 9 months when he went back to Pennsylvania, and he was 2 when his father Bill remarried Jenny Dunlap from Hopedale, and Bill, who was actually fairly well off, he was a wildcat oil man, which is why Boomtown is nearly autobiographical. So he followed the oil wells around, and there was an oil boom in a town near here back at the turn of the century, of the 20th century. So he decided he would build a house for his small family in Hopedale, and it's still there and maintained. And we have done some tours of that property. He lived in Hopedale until he quit high school when I think it was about 16. And that's a whole other story.
What is that big framed picture that you have up there? Are those diplomas or what? We can't tell what they are.
Explain that, Nan.
The certificate of authenticity. Is this the one you're talking?
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, and there's a letters from two different people. One was from Douglas Fairbanks that had written to him, and the other is just a approximate value of what the photographs and that would have been.
It's a certificate of authenticity. Who was the other movie star?
I can't ever read her name. It's Helen, and nobody seems to be able to come up with that name. But we do know this is Douglas Fairbanks.
Getting close. Maybe some of your fans there can read that thing.
And if they can, I'd like to know. I appreciate it because I cannot make out the name.
Okay.
You want to go?
Let's move on.
Okay. We're going to go into the nursery. And we have his sled that he played with in Hopedale. And we were very fortunate that we were able to buy that from the Christie's auction.
Okay, can you see the sled? There we go. There we go.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay.
Very good.
And then we have a picture of Jenny Dunlap with Clark Gable, which would have been his stepmother. And, she loved him and he loved her because she was good to him. And we also have a record of when Clark Gable was born on February the 1st at 5:30 a.m. He weighed 10.5 pounds, and the doctor really charged a lot, charging $10 to deliver Clark Gable. And you can see that Adeline was not well, so the doctor was back every day, and he charged $1 for each appointment.
And that's when doctors did house visits.
Right. And so we say that his total birth cost $32.25. A lot of money.
Now, look at the pictures that you can see here. John Clark Gable is here.
Oh, that's his son?
That's his son that was born 4 months after Gable passed. That's Judy Lewis.
That was after the Misfits.
Right, that's right. And this is Judy Lewis, his biological daughter that he never acknowledged. On going over here, there's Adeline Hershelman, who was his first, who was Bill Gable's. That was actually Clark Gable's mother. And then over the next picture, Ange, that's Bill Gable. That's William Gable, who was Clark Gable's father. And there's obviously a great resemblance there.
Yeah. Now, what was his inspiration to move to Hollywood?
Well, another fairly long story. He was always interested in acting. When Gable, after at a certain point, the oil well business dried up here, so they moved to Akron, Ohio, and Clark got a job in one of the tire factories there, which is famous for. And apparently, he would play hooky from work. And some of his fans, and I'm stealing your thunder here, man.
That's right.
Some of his fellow workers would followed him and found that he was trying to get a part in a play in one of the theaters in Akron. So what happened from that is Jenny passed away while they were living in Akron. And so Bill Gable decided to move to Oklahoma to follow the oil. And he forced his son, who was not of age yet, to go with him. So Clark Gable worked in the oil fields of Oklahoma for several years. he didn't like it. He hated it. He wanted to go into acting. So when his grandfather, who was his mother's father, passed away, he left her some money. He left him some money. So he took the money, said, "Bye, Pop," and he went to New York and tried to get some parts in New York. Now, remember, Clark Gable wasn't always Clark Gable. His teeth were not very good. He had a big gap between his two front teeth, and his hair was not what you would expect to see from Clark Gable. So he messed around there for a while, and he met a woman. Her name was Franz Doffler. Her home was in Oregon, I believe.
Yeah.
For some reason, they went to Oregon, and he proposed to her, and he was going to marry her, but whoops, he wanted to go to Hollywood. So he didn't marry her. He moved to Hollywood, and that's when he met Josephine Dillon, who taught diction, because at that time they were moving away from silent films to talkies. And many of the silent film stars, their voices were terrible. So they would go to Josephine and have lessons. And so it was Josephine Dillon who is credited with teaching him to act, getting his teeth fixed and his hair cut. And then he really became Clark Gable.
Okay. All right. Could we see more of? Do you have any other items that were owned by Clark?
Yeah, sure
Yeah,
we do.
Yes.
We have pajamas and several things.
Okay.
We have to go into the bedroom where he would have been born to acknowledge this. This is his pajama top. And you can see it's initialed.
So that was when he was already established. That was one of his pajama tops.
Yes. A lady from Canton went out to California to visit, and she didn't know that they were neighbors of the Gables. And she was talking about Clark Gable being born here in Ohio and how she adored him. And the friend went in and got his pajama top and gave to her, and she donated it to the Clark Gable Museum. And her name was Elsie Scott. And she really felt that it needed to be here.
Very nice.
And we were happy to get it because it was actually something that he wore and was his. We have pictures down here of the different cars that he owned. You know, he loved his cars. In fact, we have his 1954 Cadillac in our garage out here, Coupe de Ville. And we show that on tour when people come through here. That's part of the tour. And it's really a big hit because it's in, we had it taken care of and it's in good shape. And the story is that on one of these cars, he liked to play golf and it didn't have room for his golf club. So he took the car back to the dealership and they drilled holes in the back of the trunk so that his golf clubs could stick out and he could take them with him.
An interesting story about Gable. Of course, he did movies, including race car themes, and he was a big car fan. And he had a Duesenberg, I think it was a 34. And there were only 600 or 700 Duesenbergs ever produced. So what he said was when he ordered the car, he said it had to be 1 foot longer than Gary Cooper's. And so that's the story.
Yeah.
Were they competitive?
I think so. Well, both were tremendous leading men,
Yeah, Gary Cooper was up for Gone with the Wind as well.
That's right. He was. And there's a whole story behind how he got, he didn't want to do Gone with the Wind.
Right.
Didn't want to do it. But there's a whole story behind that. If we have time and you're interested, I'll let you know.
Okay. Do we have any costumes from any of his movies? Any props?
We have some props, but they're not original.
No. We do have the guitar picks that was donated to us. That was in Gone with the Wind. And they're very small, but they're nice and people like to see that.
We do have his pipe, right?
Yes. Yes, we do have, Clark Gable's pipe. And of course, back then they didn't have electricity, so they had oil lamps. And we were able to find oil lamps that would have been at that time period. And he loved to hunt, he loved to fish. And we have him with a gun on his shoulder. He was going out hunting. And this is his granddaughter, Kaylee Gable. And then I actually had paperweights made for Clark Gable, the king, birthplace of Cadiz, Ohio. Our local pottery at that time helped us with this.
He's reading, tell him what he's reading.
Yeah, he's reading the Cadiz Republican, as they called it then, the Harrison News Herald it is now.
It was a local newspaper at the
Yeah.
time, and he was on the set. I think that's probably Gone with the Wind.
Oh, I'm sure.
So people from here asked him to pose with that, and he did. But he never came back. There's a rumor that he came back to Hopedale once. And supposedly he came back in one of his fancy cars, and he and some of his ex-friends from a Hopedale school sat on the hood and drank from a silver flask. That has never been verified, but there's people from Hopedale that will swear that actually happened. But that's the only time he came back.
So I know my people pretty well, and I think they're going to want to know about Gone with the Wind.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
I will guess, I think, if I know them well enough, they want to know more about Gone with the Wind.
Okay. Well, David Oselznick was,
Let's go in there.
yeah, okay.
Thank you, Angie.
So David Oselznick, who produced the film, was the son-in-law of Mayer.
Louis Mayer.
From Louis B. Mayer, right. So Selznick was not working for Louis. He had his own studio, and but he was going to do this film about the Civil War, and based on the book by what's her name?
Just, no. You caught me off guard.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The lady who wrote Gone with the Wind, for heaven's sakes. And it'll come back to me in a minute. Anyhow, he was, go ahead.
Margaret Mitchell.
Margaret Mitchell, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Margaret Mitchell. But he needed a leading lady, and he always knew he wanted Clark Gable for that role. So, but Gable didn't want to do it because, for one, Civil War movies and movies of that era were not doing well at the time at the box office. So here's what happened. He was married to Rhea Langham, and he fell in love with Carol Lombard. He wanted to marry Carol Lombard, but he was already married to Rhea Langham, who didn't want to divorce him. So the story is that Louis B. Mayer and Selznick, they said, if you will be in my movie, Mr. Gable, Louis B. Mayer will give you the permission to do Gone with the Wind, and we will arrange for Rhea Langham to divorce you. So what we think is they bribed her. And so he had to live up to his end of the agreement, which was to become Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind. And he really didn't want to do the film. Now, can you imagine?
The public did want him.
Of course, the public voted him in. They said that's who should be Rhett Butler.
And Cooper didn't want to do it. He thought it was going to be a big flop as well. And he thought, great, let Clark Gable flop. I'm out of here.
Yep, that's right. That's exactly right. And as we know, it didn't flop.
No. It's still as popular as it was then.
Yep, that's very true. Controversial,
yes,
but popular, no question. So that's the story of how he got into the film. The whole thing with Vivien Leigh is another story that I'm not really qualified to talk about. But they tested an awful lot of women, very famous, to become Scarlet, and she got it.
Victor Fleming, when he directed it, I always thought, there are certain movies when the actor, the lead, makes their entrance, you just know there's a star in front of you.
Right.
When you saw Stagecoach, and the first time you see John Ford's sweeping pan to John Wayne, you said, wow, there is the star. And the same thing with Clark Gable. You see him at the bottom of the staircase, and boy, does he just light up the screen at that moment.
Talk about an iconic shot.
It is.
That certainly, that's
it.
it. We have that photo someplace. I'm not sure where.
Yeah,
It's here.
Here shows some of the Gone with the Wind.
Well, Nan, sure, back up
what's this?
the puzzle.
Oh, the puzzle. Yeah, a lady from New Philadelphia donated. It's a 2,000-piece puzzle, Gone with the Wind. And I'm telling you, she was really adept at putting puzzles together, because I think it took her maybe a month, and she had it put together and framed and donated to the Gable Museum. And we have really appreciated it because it has all the different scenes from Gone with the Wind. And then we have Scarlett sitting on the steps with Fred Crane and
George Besselo.
yes.
Now, there's a big story behind that, Sal, that you probably know. I'm trying to think of who's who here.
George Reeves.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He later became George Reeves, and who, of course, was Superman on the television series. Fred Crane, who's down here. Fred Crane was Brent Tarleton, and Fred became our first movie star from the West Coast who came to Cadiz. And he created what I called the California Connection. And then he started talking to other people that he knew that were in the film industry at that time. And many of them came here and appeared at some of our functions. Yeah, there's Rhett at the bottom of the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that?
There's a story behind these globes. This lady had collected the globes with scenes of Gone with the Wind, and they were getting ready to move, and she wanted to move them with her, and her husband didn't think that was necessary, and he didn't pack them very good, and the water was all spilled out of them by the time they arrived to us. And in fact, the case, we had a little bit of a difficulty trying to get them because they were afraid that there was something that shouldn't have been leaking.
No.
And the postal was kind of
Worried
iffy.
about it.
Yes. But we have them, and we really appreciate it.
So did he and Vivian Lee get along?
Yes, they got along fine. Not the way it was with Marilyn Monroe, as you know. They were very good together. In fact, Oselznick was so particular that the film was wrapped up and he didn't like the opening scene. So he brought her back on an ocean liner from London and redid the scene. Fred told us that because Fred Crane appeared in it. And he, at the time, they paid him $75 a week, which was a huge amount of money at that period of time. And because they kept refilming sections of it, he continued to be on the payroll. So he was very happy to be able to make that extra money. So yeah, they got along fine. It just took a long time. And again, they changed directors in the middle of the film because Oselznick wasn't happy with the speed of that it was going. So he removed. Why can't I think of the original? He's very famous.
I think.
But
was it George Cukor?
It was George Cukor. That's exactly right. And he was considered a woman's director. So, but he wasn't making any progress with the film, and they were spending a lot of money. So he was fired, and Gable then had he was doing The Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
and came over from The Wizard of Oz to finish up Gone with the Wind. You'll have to help me with his name.
Victor Fleming.
That's exactly it. Of course, it was Victor Fleming. And Victor Fleming was very close friends with Clark Gable.
Right.
And gave him a lot more favorable camera time because they were friends.
Especially that great shot at the beginning.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, a little trivia for people watching the scene of Atlanta burning. The background was basically from King Kong. The
Right.
wall from King Kong was what was set. That was the end of King Kong. They just burnt up that entire wall that you saw in Kong.
Right. That's right.
And I think it was also the first scene that Clark and Vivian filmed, if I'm not mistaken. They did have stand-ins for them because of all the fire and everything.
Oh,
but I
right.
think it was the first scene that they made when they were doing the movie. Okay.
That I believe you're correct.
Okay, take it away.
Yeah. Well, we also have over here Hattie McDaniel, who was, their maid, and
Mammy.
Mammy. And we have Butterfly McQueen, who was here at one of our parties. And she was very skittish, and she didn't want anybody to touch her. And one of our board members decided she would try that out. And she let out a scream, and we thought something had really happened to her. So we found out real quick that she didn't want to be touched.
Wow. From what I understand, Hattie McDaniel, she and Clark Gable were very close.
Very close.
Yes.
And you know the story of the premiere of Gone with the Wind in Atlanta, right?
Would you share it with everybody?
Certainly. So you've seen the newsreels of them going to watch the film. And so all the stars were seated in the front of the theater, except for Hattie McDaniel. Because she was Black, they wouldn't seat her there, and they put her in a different room. Clark said, "Oh, no, that's not going to happen." He personally went over and got Hattie, and he said, "If she's not going to be in here, I'm not going to be in here." So that's what he did. And Miss Prissy, Butterfly McQueen, told us that Clark Gable was very good to her. And one of the things she was upset about, however, was when she slapped. If you watch the movie, because she says, "I don't know anything about birthing baby," and then she gets a big slap in her face. She didn't want that. She said that was demeaning, but they finally talked her into it. And of course, they didn't slap her, but they finally talked her into it. And she said it was 1939, and that you didn't treat people like that anymore. So, but again, it was just a scene from the movie, so she agreed to go along with it.
I had read something about the men's rooms, the on the set, and the ladies' rooms. They had it marked white and colored, and Clark Gable was the one that said, "Take those signs down, or you don't have a Rhett Butler anymore."
That's right, he did. And what we haven't told you is, growing up, he had several Black friends, very close friends. Bill Christian was a very close friend. So, Hopedale was a integrated community. There was no segregation there, and that's what he grew up with. And he was apparently they went to a baseball game once, and Christian went with them. And they said the other team said, we don't allow Black people in this on this field. And he said, "Well, then you don't have any of us." And they got on the train and left.
So he was ahead of his time, Clark Gable.
He certainly was. He certainly was.
I might be wrong. That story you were telling about going to the premiere,
Mm-hmm.
From what I remember, it was Hattie that told Clark, "Go back in. I understand what's going on." And she backed away. But when it came to the Academy Awards, she was there. And then she was the first African-American to win an Academy Award.
Right.
Yeah.
She was. Indeed, she was.
And it didn't really help. When you think about it, her career, she stayed playing the same parts for the rest of her life.
She did. She was typecast.
Yes.
For the rest of her life. It's absolutely true.
Unfortunately, yes. Because that scene in Gone with the Wind, when she's going up the stairs and weeping and telling Olivia de Havilland about what was going on with Rhett Butler in the bedroom, that is a heartbreaking scene. Oh, did we lose anybody?
No,
We're here.
we were listening to you. It was that was an interesting story.
They don't want to hear me. They want to hear you. Let's see.
I
Let's
want
see.
to show you. So, as you know, I'm sure Ohio was the birthplace of a lot of movie stars. Many of them, Phyllis Diller, and on and on. Well, here's a
Roy
photograph.
Rogers.
Well, here's a photograph of two boys from Ohio golfing, and that was Roy Rogers on the right and Clark Gable on the left. You see what he's got in his hand? A cigarette, and that's what ultimately killed him, was the heart.
Yeah. And it's a shame there's a whole generation of young people that don't know who Roy Rogers is.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
That's true.
They think he sells hamburgers. Yeah.
yeah.
The lamp that is sitting on the stand here is actually came from Clark Gable's garage, not the shade. But I guess somebody said that he did like working with his hands and carving, and so we were able. John, his son, did give us that, and of course I put the lamp shade on it. But that actually did come from Gable. Then we have his motorcycle, a picture of his motorcycle on the wall here, and it has been here twice. And it is housed in Ashtabula, I understand.
Ohio.
Yes, Ohio. I'm sorry. I think everybody knows where all Ohio towns are. But anyhow, the man's son has it, and he's going to keep it, he said.
Now show him the pipe.
Yeah, there's Clark Gable's pipe.
From what film?
After office hours.
How did you acquire that?
Well, that was pretty good because Roy Bowers had it, the local citizen. And when we opened this up, he called me and wanted to know if we would like to display it. So I had a local man to make the case so that people wouldn't be wanting to touch it and try to put it in their mouth or anything else. And we now have it here on display, and we have a picture of Clark Gable holding the pipe after office hours.
I didn't ask you three. Do you each have your own favorite Gable movie?
Well,
Oh,
made so many movies.
67 talking
Hold on,
films.
hold on.
Something happened to the video.
Yep, we lost your picture.
go ahead.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Go ahead. You can sort that out here. Let's do this. All right. Hold on. All right. Yeah, that's okay. We can come back to it once they get the video back up and running. But Dad, we have that poll question of which is not true about Clark Gable.
Yeah.
Do you want to launch that?
Sure.
Here, let's take a look. So which of the following statements is not true about Clark Gable? We've had some time today to learn a little bit about the man. So let's see how we fare. Which is not true? Clark Gable was Hitler's favorite actor. Gable had false teeth. His birth certificate mistakenly listed his sex as female. Or he once got lost in the Amazon while making a movie.
Nan, you know it.
Oh, you know which
What
one
was
is
the
not.
question
Hang on. No
We're doing a
cheating yet.
poll.
You're doing a poll.
Oh,
You're a
Good
ringer. All right, we're looking for which one is not true. And it seems like people are very suspicious about his birth certificate and getting lost in the Amazon. Those are the two he's having that we're having trouble accepting. All right, so what does it shake out as, Ann? Nan, what's the truth? Or which is not true?
that he got lost in the Amazon?
Is that true?
That's
No.
it.
That's the false one.
Yeah, that's the false one.
Yeah.
Right.
Gosh, I lucked out, didn't I?
Okay, where are we now?
Well, we're over here where we have his picture and his medals that he earned when he was in the service. We also have a letter from Dwight Eisenhower, J. Edgar Hoover, Ronald Reagan, and we have the, call on Mike, I can't think of what you call this,
His military credentials.
Well, you know what? We should explain how he ended up going into the military, and it was all due to that horrible accident.
Yep, that's true. So, he was back in Hollywood, and Carol Lombard was doing bond drives, selling war bonds. And she was in Indianapolis. That was her last stop. And she wanted to get back to Clark pretty quickly. So they took a plane, and that's when the plane crashed into, what was the name?
Tabletop Mountain.
Tabletop Mountain. We have a room that's dedicated to Carol Lombard.
Can we go there?
We're heading that way.
Okay,
So,
now she was with her mother, if I'm not mistaken.
With her mother. She and her mother were on the plane. Clark was completely broken up by it. All the pictures of him, he had on his sunglasses because he was crying. But before this occurred, Carol said, "Pa," because that's what she called him, "you need to get involved in this war effort." So what did he do? He was 42 years old and he enlisted and in the Air Force, and they commissioned him an officer, and he actually flew a number of live bombing flights over Germany. In fact, the Fuhrer put a $5 million price tag on his head. If you bring me Clark Gable, we'll give you $5 million.
Yeah. Very sad ending for Carol Lombard.
Carol Lombard.
Yes.
Yeah. You want to move over there, Nan?
Oh, to Carol's room?
Yeah, let's go to Carol's room.
Okay.
This would have been what? Pantry?
This was the pantry, yeah. This is where they kept their,
Well, I don't think she can hear. Yeah.
this would have been their pantry when Clark was growing up. And they kept their extra food in here. They had an ice box, not a refrigerator, but an ice box. And we kind of just made it into the Carol Lombard room because she was such a part of his life. And we also have a picture of one of our board members who has deceased, but was very much into Carol Lombard. And he went to the Tabletop Mountain on 3 different occasions. And we have parts of the plane that he brought back out
Salvaged.
that so that he could show that he was up there. And part of the motor was still there. And he did take the pictures and all.
Show the scarf.
Yeah. And we also have Carol Lombard's scarf that Norm Lambert's widow donated to us just here in the last 7 months. And because she had it and she said it belongs with Clark Gable. And so we were very appreciative that we were able to obtain that to show. We also have the ring, replica of the rings that he gave Carol. And there was a black diamond, and that is a most unusual ring. In fact, the case, Norm Lambert had one made for his wife. He was so fascinated with it. And then there's a replica of a ring that he gave Carol when they were married. We also have his dog tag there in the display. We have his cigarette case. And then we have Carol's hair comb and her travel alarm. So we've been very fortunate that people have brought these items to us.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Clark insisted on going up the mountain himself.
He did.
He did, and then he sat down in a bar and waited for them to bring her remains down. And they spent their honeymoon supposedly in Oatman, and they actually didn't stay there. They went there and they waited until all the guests had left their ranch, and then they went back to the ranch and spent their first night there.
And I think her last motion picture was To Be or Not to Be with Jack Benny.
I think you're right. And
Show the picture of them at the.
yeah, right down here.
No, there it is. There you
Yeah,
go.
you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It's kind of down there.
Yeah, we just don't have enough space to kind of have to crowd things in.
Show this one over here, and this is he and Carol going to Calm with the Wind.
And
I might be mistaken, but that seemed to be the marriage for Clark Gable, the perfect marriage, I should say.
yes,
She loved
yes,
camping, she loved fishing. She was an outdoors type. She had salty language,
yeah,
and they seemed to get along quite well.
yes, they did. He, I think he loved her dearly.
They particularly liked to duck hunt, and there's a film, home movie, if you will, that was taken of them when they were out in a duck hunting blind or whatever, and he's got a duck calling, what do you call it? Whistle, whatever it is, and he's blowing that and chasing her around. So this was not long after they were married. Actually, she wasn't initially an outdoors person, but she was bound and determined that she wasn't going to let Gable go by himself. So she became a real fan of hunting, fishing, camping, and all those things.
Angie, did you happen to get a picture of Carol Lombard and 21 others in that airline crash? It's kind of hard because we're such a small room. Can you see that one?
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
I thought that was a great paper that put that on their front page there in Los Angeles.
So,
Actually, I think we have basically covered all of it.
but I'd like, Mike, if you can just tell us a little bit about, I want to go to the final years of his life, and I want to go to his relationship with Marilyn making the Misfits.
Yeah. Well, as you know,
was that downstairs?
in the early 50s, he finally got out of his contract with MGM and became an independent producer. You know, they didn't make any money from the films really because the MGM owned the rights. In fact, we've had a lot of problems being able to display pictures because they own them. And we had to get permission from them. There's a couple of them downstairs that I just recently put out. One of them with Spencer Tracy and Gable, and from Boomtown, which was autobiographical. So they were on the set out in Utah. It was hotter than the bejesus. You know, temperatures were over 100 degrees, and Marilyn Monroe at that time was beginning to suffer mental issues, and she would go into extreme depression. So she had a trailer, I believe it was air conditioned, and she would go into the trailer. He would show up on set when he was supposed to be. His original contract with MGM said, all filming stops at 5 p.m. I'm done for the day. So he would be there very early in the morning, but he wanted to do that because he wanted to get back home and pursue some of his other pursuits. In this case, he would show up for the set and she'd come out to do a scene, and then she'd get upset and she'd go into the trailer and she'd sit in there for 2 or 3 hours. So the men would gather around anything that they could to make a makeshift table and play cards until she came back out. So, but during the filming, he refused to allow a double to do the stunt scenes. So when he's holding the wild horse and all this, it's him. And they believe that aggravated his heart condition badly, because it was not long after he finished filming, it hadn't been put out yet, I believe, when he was admitted to the hospital in Los Angeles. I believe he was in the heart section for 7 days before he passed away. So, and then she, of course, it was 2 years later that she committed suicide. And Montgomery Clift was the other one in the film.
Yes.
And he died not long after the filming. So they said the film was cursed.
Wow. And I don't want to push you. You've been very generous showing us your beautiful museum. Is it possible to see the car you were talking about, or is that difficult?
Well, it's as you know, it's been snowing here, but can you get in the garage?
Oh, I can get in.
Yeah, we
if
can show you.
Ski boots, I can get in.
Yeah.
All right. Great.
We'll go.
Okay.
It's going to take us a little while.
All
You
right.
might want to do some more of your polling or whatever while we get ready for this.
Okay. And we'll see you in the garage. Darren, do you have any more survey?
We do. Yeah, you bet. We have another pop quiz for everybody. Thank you for sticking with us. So here we go. Let's try one more, see how we're doing.
To see that car.
I know that we've been talking about it in the chat this whole time. And I want to admit, well, here's our question. Who sang You Made Me Love You to Clark Gable? Was it Judy Garland, Virginia Mayo, Ann Miller, or Lauren Bacall? So we already have a lot of votes going in for Judy Garland. But I did want to say this, Pop, I don't know how much you've been able to watch the chat, but our guests, I am in awe of how respectful and intelligent this conversation has been in the chat. It really is. I want to say I'm proud of everyone. It's just doing so well. So it makes me very happy to read the chat of everybody collaborating on the stories and the truths. And I already see we have votes coming in from Facebook as well, from Brian for Garland. And I think we had the majority of our votes. Dad, you want to say who sang You Made Me Love You to Clark Gable?
That's it. Judy Garland. They've got it. We have a very, very astute group. That's for certain.
There it is. And let's see, we have one more about Clark Gable, one more question for him. This is, let's pull it up here. Gable's last picture was The Misfits. Who wrote it? Eugene O'Neill, Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, Edward Albee. Wow. Just putting those four names together, that is some roster. My goodness. All right. Eugene O'Neill, Tennessee Williams, and Arthur Miller.
Well, it was written by Marilyn Monroe's husband. And that's
that's a good hint.
Yeah.
That's a good hint. But you know what? Honestly, I don't even think our guests need it. By far, 85%, or I'm sorry, almost 75% of the people right now are casting their vote for Arthur Miller. How are we doing, Pop?
And for any of the guests that are local here on Long Island, Arthur Miller and Marilyn spent a lot of time out east in Miller Place. Many people said, oh, it was named after Arthur Miller. It wasn't. That was the name of the town, coincidentally. But they did spend a lot of time. There are many pictures online of her and he on the beach. And she attracted a crowd even in those days. People would go to the beach to go see her.
And to be honest, to be clear, Arthur Miller is the author. All right, let's see here. Oh, I see. Okay, they must have had to sign out in order to go over to the garage. So, John, let's just keep an eye out for when they pop back in. Where are we zooming from Long Island? Across Long Island, from Brooklyn, Sound Beach, and also Medford. That's where we are on Long Island. But I have a question. I've been curious, how many of our virtual road trips have you attended? Please send it into the chat. Just give us a number. We're curious as to how many of these you've been able to attend. Is this your first time with us? We'd love to know. Oh, thank you. It was a lot of first time. This is wonderful. 2. I know we had 3 in a row this past month, so it's really special. But we are being outshined right now because there is a beautiful car. Oh my goodness! Wow.
This car was in the Cars of the Stars Museum in Hollywood, and we had a man who lived in Harrison County, which is our county, who collected them and had his own little museum. So we said that car can't leave Clark Gable's home. So we bought it, and it's fully restored. And I took it out one time, and I wanted to get gas, and I couldn't figure out where to put the gas. And walk around the back here, Ange.
I'm going in.
Okay.
That is beautiful. Wow.
It's kept up beautifully.
I haven't even seen this yet.
Okay. Fancy machine. That's where you put the gas.
Wow. In the tail light.
In the tail light.
Angie, can you show us what the dashboard looks like?
Yeah.
And do we know what year the car is?
1954, Coupe de Ville. It has air conditioning.
Looks brand new.
It smells old.
Wow, very nice.
And then, here's the. Hold this, Dad.
No, his driver's license. Certificate of
Cadillac Motor Division.
He took delivery of the Cadillac from Casa de Cadillac in Sherman Oaks, California on July 15th, 1954.
Excellent.
Wow.
Mike, thank you so much for going out of your way and going out there in the snow. So appreciated. And I know our guests had a ball going. You know, one of the comments we always make after one of our road trips, when this pandemic passes, they want to come and see your site in person.
Wonderful. We would love to see them.
Yeah. We may just get a bus trip going right across the country.
Yes.
Hey, wonderful. We do that. We do that all the time.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Angie. I know Nan is around there somewhere.
Nan's gone back yet. Right.
Yeah, this was a real treat. Darren?
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. I know you're interested in more, and you can get more over at the clarkgablefoundation.com. Wonderful information, beautiful site, and one of the highlights here that I know we're asking about is the gift shop. And that's where you can see so many of the items that were on display here today during the tour. It's even a Clark Gable onesie. Is that a onesie? Well, a wonderful selection of items there you can pick up and support the Clark Gable Foundation. Every little bit helps. You can follow us on Facebook. We're always over there sending in some interesting information and updates to our programs. You can also watch our virtual tours. All of our virtual road trips are on Sal's YouTube page. So you can go to YouTube, type in Sal St. George, and you're going to find all of his virtual road trips. Recently, we went to the Laurel and Hardy Museum and also celebrated the 100th anniversary of the Miss America pageant. You can sign up for all of Sal's programs at salstgeorge.com. That's where you'll find him. Here's Clark Gable from today. And coming up next week, we have those funny boys from Brooklyn, which Dad and I have been working on this for a little while now, and it's going to be a lot of laughs. After that, we have the story of Coney Island with our guest star, Doug Minard. And our road trips coming up, we still have road trips to Coventry, England, our first trip over the pond for March. We're visiting the Phil Silvers Museum. We are visiting the Buffalo Bill Center of the West for the end of March. And for April, we have the Owens and Ginger Rogers Museum. So there is a lot of fun stuff happening. You can also pick up Sal's virtual road trip mugs. You can pick them up on his website. That's what you've been seeing Dad and I drinking out of today. And as always, we look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for everyone at the Clark Gable Museum. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, everybody.